If someone told me that a simple Christmas gift could rip apart the foundation of your world, I would have laughed until it happened to us. It started out as a fun idea. Me and my wife, Amber, thought it'd be cool to take one of those at-home genetic ancestry kits. You know, the kind that tells you whether you've got Viking roots or some long-lost cousin in Spain. We'd seen the ads a dozen times during football games, and one day at Target, Amber tossed the kits into the cart with a mischievous grin. "Let's find out if I'm royalty," she said. We'd been married 8 years, had 2 kids, a golden retriever named Gus, and a kitchen calendar so packed with activities we needed color-coded markers just to keep up. Life was good. Boring, maybe, but good. 2 weeks later, the email notifications popped up. I opened mine first, expecting some mix of Irish and German, maybe a splash of Native American like my grandma used to claim. Amber stood over my shoulder, bowl of cereal in hand, scrolling through her phone. "Anything cool?" she asked. "Says I've got a cousin in Chicago I never heard of," I said, then clicked on the Relatives tab. I froze. Right there, in bold letters, was her name. Amber Jennings. Relationship, half-sibling. "Huh," I muttered. "What?" she asked, chewing loudly. "It says, you're my sister." She snorted. "Yeah, right?" I didn't laugh. Neither did the site. "No, seriously," I said, turning the screen to her. She took a bite, then slowly set the spoon down. Her expression shifted, first confusion, then a weird, deep stillness. We stared at the screen like it might glitch and correct itself. Half-siblings. We double-checked the accounts. Our names. Our birth dates. Our test barcodes. No mix-up. I clicked for more info and saw our shared parent, father. The blood drained from her face. "That's impossible," she whispered. "My dad's name is Alan Shore. He was married to my mom for 35 years. My dad's Mark Jennings," I said, voice hollow. They were never even in the same circles. We spent the rest of the morning in a daze. Digging through old family photos, calling our moms, trying to piece together a story that could make this make sense. But nothing added up until it did. Amber's mom, after much stammering, admitted she once dated a Mark briefly before marrying Alan. Swore it ended clean. My mom, after a long silence, said she might have hooked up with a guy named Alan once during a messy period. Neither of them knew, or admitted to knowing, their men were already involved with someone else. And clearly, neither used protection. I felt the ground shift under me like I was falling in slow motion. Amber stood by the kitchen sink, white as a ghost, staring at the family photo stuck to the fridge with a smiley magnet. "Our wedding. Our kids. Everything. What does this mean?" she asked quietly. I don't know," I said. But we both knew something had just shattered, something that couldn't be undone with a phone call or family meeting. Our marriage, our children, our identities, every piece of our life had just been thrown into question. And this was only the beginning. We didn't talk much that night. The kids were at Amber's mom's house for a weekend sleepover, thank God, so we had the house to ourselves and silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Amber took the test results and locked herself in our bedroom while I sat on the living room couch, staring at the floor. I must have reread the word half-sibling 100 times. Each time it looked more surreal, more cruel. Our wedding photo on the mantel mocked me. Her bouquet of white roses. My trembling hands as I slipped the ring on her finger. The way her father, my biological father, walked her down the aisle. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat in the dark until the streetlights flicked on. Eventually, Amber came out. Her eyes were puffy. "Did you know?" she asked. Her voice was cold, brittle, unfamiliar. "Of course not," I said. "Did you?" She shook her head violently. "I swear I didn't. I wouldn't have married you, had kids with you, I wouldn't." Her voice cracked, and she turned away, gripping the counter like it was the only thing holding her up. What the hell are we supposed to do? I didn't have an answer. Everything in me wanted to run, out of the house, out of this life, back to the moment we bought those damn kits and throw them in the trash. But there was no going back. Only forward. Through this mess. Through this nightmare. "I need to know the truth," she said suddenly. "All of it." She grabbed her phone and called her mom again, voice sharp and unrelenting. It was the most assertive I'd ever seen her. What came out during that call felt like peeling skin off a wound. Her mother admitted it had been a fling. A mistake. A short-lived, secretive thing with a man she only knew as Mark from the accounting department of a short-term job she had before meeting Alan. They'd had drinks once. Maybe twice. Then nothing. She never told Alan. She never told anyone. And she never thought there'd be consequences. But there were. Huge ones. "You think this is something you just bury?" Amber screamed. "You think this doesn't matter because you moved on?" I didn't hear what her mom said next. Amber ended the call mid-sentence and threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall, bounced off, landed near my feet. "She's been lying to me my whole life," she whispered. "I thought I came from this perfect little family with church picnics and Sunday dinners and parents who kissed goodnight. And it was all fake." I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning in 100 directions. What did this mean for us legally? Morally? What about our kids? Were they what products of incest? Was that even the right word? I didn't want to think about it, but I had to. I opened my laptop, started Googling things I never imagined I'd search: accidental sibling marriage, genetic risks, children half-siblings, laws about marrying your sibling without knowing. Most of the results made my stomach churn. Some were clinical, others judgmental, a few heartbreaking. I read one story about a couple in Germany who were torn apart after discovering a similar truth and lost custody of their kids. Amber joined me at the table. Her hand hovered over mine for a moment, then dropped. "What if we're wrong?" she asked. "What if the test was faulty?" "We could get retested," I offered, grasping at straws. "Maybe even get a third party involved. Full genome analysis. Something deeper." She nodded. Yeah, maybe it's just a glitch." But deep down, we both knew it wasn't. The resemblance was there. Once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. The same curve of the jaw. The same dimple on the left cheek when we smiled. Our daughter had both. Our son had my nose. Or hers. Or his, our father's. I suddenly felt like I was made of glass and someone had just picked up a hammer. The next morning felt like waking up after a car crash, quiet, surreal, and broken. Amber was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with 2 coffees in front of her, both untouched. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun and she was wearing one of my old college sweatshirts. For a second, I wanted to pretend it was just a normal Sunday. Coffee. Bagels. Maybe a family walk at the park before lunch. But then I remembered, our life had cracked in half. She pushed one coffee toward me without saying anything. I sat down across from her and we just stared. "I booked a second test," she finally said. "Full spectrum, mitochondrial DNA, the works. It's expensive, but we need to be sure." I nodded. I had already done the same. Different lab, different methods. Maybe some thread of hope would come out different. Maybe it would all turn out to be some bizarre data error or lab mix-up. But hope like that felt dangerous. We were clinging to a fantasy that couldn't hold our weight. Later that day, the kids came home. Evan, our 10-year-old, ran into the living room with a Nerf gun, yelling something about aliens. Nora, 6, climbed into Amber's lap, chattering about baking cookies with Grandma. Amber smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I excused myself to the garage, gripping the edge of my workbench until my knuckles went white. How do you look at your kids, your beautiful, funny, smart kids, and wonder if you should have never had them? That night, Amber and I lay in bed, backs turned, hearts racing. Do you think they'll be okay?" she asked into the dark. "Medically, I mean." "From what I read," I said, my voice dry, "the risks are higher for close relatives, but not guaranteed. Our kids are healthy. Bright. Perfect. But that's not the point, is it?" she said. "What happens when they find out?" That hit me like a gut punch. We hadn't even begun to think long-term, how to tell them, when to tell them, if we ever should. "Do we tell them?" I asked. Amber was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. "We'll know when the results come back," she finally said. "Let's take it one step at a time." But the weight of what we were carrying didn't pause just because we asked it to. The days crawled by. We started avoiding each other, not on purpose, but naturally. It was like we were living in a house of mirrors, and every time we looked at each other, we saw the same reflection, a life built on a lie no one told, but one we now couldn't unlearn. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found Amber crying into a dish towel. Not sniffling, sobbing. Shoulders shaking, breath catching, her whole body trying to fold into itself. I didn't know what to do. I stood there like a ghost until she noticed me. "We didn't do anything wrong," she said between sobs. "We didn't know. We loved each other." And she was right. We built this life honestly with love and trust and decades of shared history. We hadn't betrayed anyone. We'd just been betrayed by time, by our parents' mistakes, by a secret too big to stay buried forever. "I still love you," I said, and I meant it. "I don't know what that means anymore," she whispered. Neither did I. That night, I looked at our wedding video. It had been tucked away on an old hard drive I hadn't touched in years. There we were, laughing, dancing, kissing. 2 people without a clue. 2 people who had no idea they shared a father, and even less of an idea that one day their love story would become a cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. And still, when I watched us smile that day, I couldn't help it, I cried. The test results came back on a Tuesday. I was at work pretending to focus on quarterly reports when I saw the email notification light up my screen. My hand hovered over the mouse for a full minute before I finally clicked. Amber's text came seconds later. Got mine too. I can't open it alone. I left work without a word. 20 minutes later, we sat together on the edge of our bed, laptops open, breathing like we were about to jump off a cliff. We counted to 3. Clicked. And then, silence. The results were undeniable. Sibling DNA match. Full confirmation. No lab errors. No miracle switch-ups. Amber covered her mouth with both hands, her shoulders trembling. I sat there motionless, the words swimming in front of me. Genetic similarity, 48.7%. Relationship, half-sibling. Shared parent, biological father. I closed the laptop. Amber pushed hers aside and curled into herself like a child trying to disappear. It felt like someone had stamped a giant X across our lives, like everything we'd ever built had been invalidated by a stupid sequence of DNA. What now? She asked, her voice barely audible. That was the question. What now? Did we stay together? Did we separate? Did we tell our children? Our families? The church that married us? The neighbors who knew us as the perfect couple with matching lawn chairs and summer barbecues? We were still legally married. Still co-parents. Still emotionally tied in ways neither of us knew how to untangle. We need to talk to a genetic counselor, I said. A therapist. Someone. She nodded slowly. We made a few calls that night. Set up appointments. Started laying the groundwork for answers that might never bring peace. But something shifted between us after that. We stopped pretending. We started talking, really talking. One night on the back porch, Amber lit a candle and looked at me like she used to. I still love you, she said. And I know that's complicated now. But I can't just stop. My heart doesn't work like that. I didn't have the right words. Only feelings. I took her hand. We've raised kids. Survived layoffs. Illness. Deaths in the family. And now this. If we can get through this, maybe we can get through anything. But the tension in the room kept growing. Our children. We couldn't decide what to tell them or when. Do we destroy their world, to be honest? Or protect their innocence at the cost of our own integrity? I started seeing flashes of their faces in my sleep. Evan's goofy smile. Nora's little drawings of our family, always with hearts around mommy and daddy. One night, Amber woke me up in tears. They'll hate us. One day, they'll find out and they'll hate us. I pulled her close. They'll know we didn't lie. We just didn't know. They'll know we did everything out of love. But we didn't believe it. Not really. Some part of us had already started mourning the life we thought we had, the identity we'd both carried since birth. That same week, Amber's dad Alan called, drunk. He'd found out. Her mother told him everything. Amber put him on speaker and he rambled for nearly 5 minutes before his voice cracked. I raised you, he slurred. I changed your diapers. Taught you to ride a bike. That makes me your father. No damn DNA test changes that. And as strange as it sounds, that was the first thing that made any sense. After Alan's call, something inside Amber shifted. Maybe it was relief, maybe grief, maybe both. She cried in the shower for nearly an hour the next morning, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, primal. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the water run and wishing I could fix any of it. But there was no fixing this. Only surviving it. We started therapy the next week. A couples counselor first, then a genetic counselor, and eventually a trauma therapist. We went 3 times a week between the two of us. We discovered we were far from the only ones. There were forums, support groups, articles and studies. A strange little world of people just like us who had fallen in love without knowing they shared a bloodline. Some couples stayed together. Some separated but co-parented. Some went no contact and carried the secret to their graves. The hardest part wasn't the science, it was the shame. People hear the word sibling and their minds go to the worst places. They forget the love came first. The trust. The partnership. The life built from scratch. Not from sin. Not from deceit. From love. That weekend we sat down and wrote letters. Not to send. Not yet. Just to get the words out. One for Evan. One for Nora. Explaining everything in case we were ever gone before we could tell them in person. We wanted them to hear it from us. Not in whispers or online rumors or some twisted family anecdote decades from now. It took days to finish. We sealed them and tucked them in the back of the safe behind our passports. It gave us a strange kind of peace. Like maybe, just maybe, we could survive the storm with our dignity intact. But the world outside didn't stop turning. School pickups. Soccer games. Grocery runs. No one else knew our secret, and sometimes that made it even harder. We had to pretend to be normal while carrying this invisible weight. One Sunday morning, at a church picnic, Evan asked me, "Daddy, how did you and Mommy meet?" My chest clenched. Amber glanced at me, frozen mid-bite of her sandwich. I swallowed. We met a long time ago, I said. In college. I made her laugh when I spilled ketchup on my shoes. Evan giggled. That's a lame way to meet. Worked for us, I said. I saw the flicker of a smile on Amber's face. The tiniest, saddest smile. After the picnic, she pulled me aside. I think I want to separate for a while, she said softly. Just to think. To breathe. My stomach dropped, but I didn't argue. I understood. We rented a small apartment 10 minutes away. I moved in with a few clothes and my laptop. The kids didn't ask questions. We told them Mommy and Daddy were trying something new, taking turns with bedtime and pancake Saturdays. Amber and I still texted every day. Still talked every night after the kids were asleep. But the distance began to settle in. We started ending our calls with good night instead of I love you. A subtle, painful shift. One morning, Nora came into the room, hair sticking up like fireworks, holding one of her drawings. This is our family, she said. For stick figures holding hands. But the Mommy and Daddy were standing apart with little broken hearts over their heads. I couldn't breathe. Why are we sad in this one, honey? I asked. She shrugged. Because you and Mommy miss each other, duh. I hugged her so tight she squirmed. And later that night, I stared at that drawing for an hour, trying to decide what kind of family we were now and what we might still become. The separation stretched from weeks into months. At first, it was supposed to be temporary, just space to breathe. But slowly, that space filled with doubts, what-ifs, and quiet mornings spent apart. We tried to be civil, consistent, present for the kids. Our routines barely changed. Amber dropped them off at school, I picked them up. We still went to the same church, the same grocery store. But the easy laughter was gone. Even Gus, our dog, sensed it. He'd sit by the front door every night I was away, waiting for me to come home, confused when I didn't. The kids never asked directly why I was staying somewhere else. Evan was old enough to notice, though. One night as I tucked him in, he asked, "Is this like what happened to Tyler's parents?" I paused. "You mean divorce?" He nodded. "Sort of," I said. "But not exactly. Do you still love Mommy?" I swallowed hard. "Very much." "Then come home," he said simply. That night I sat in the apartment's tiny kitchen, turning his words over like a coin. Come home. I wanted to. But the line had been crossed. And we didn't cross it by choice. It was written in our DNA. I met with the trauma counselor again that week, alone this time. She asked, what would it mean to stay married? I didn't know how to answer. The world would call us wrong. Some laws would agree. But our love had never come from a place of wrongdoing. It came from 1,000 everyday moments, midnight feedings, shared grief over lost grandparents, late-night dance parties in the kitchen when the power went out. Amber was the love of my life. And now she was my sister. Two truths that could never exist in harmony. We had to choose. And either way, something would break. Later that week, Amber invited me to dinner at the house. She made spaghetti, my favorite. We laughed once, twice, cautiously. After the kids went to bed, she brought out a stack of papers. Custody plans. Financial breakdowns. Schedules. It's not a divorce, she said. Not yet. Just a framework. In case we can't find our way back. I nodded numb. Then she looked at me, eyes glassy. Do you still love me? With everything I have, I said. But love doesn't always mean we get to stay. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I want to stay. But every time I look at you now, I see a question I can't answer. I knew what she meant. We'd built a life brick by brick only to find out the foundation came from the same tree. So what do? I asked. She took my hand and held it tightly. We protect the kids. We stay honest. We give them love. No matter what this becomes, we never stop being their parents. That night, I tucked Nora into bed. She clutched my finger like she used to when she was a baby. Daddy, she whispered, eyes half shut, you're still going to be here, right? Always, I said. I meant it. Whatever we were now, siblings, soulmates, strangers with history, we were still her parents. And some lines, though crossed, didn't erase the ones that mattered most. Spring came early that year. The trees bloomed too fast, like everything was trying to grow before it was ready. That's how life felt, rushing forward while we stood still, caught between what was and what could never fully be again. Amber and I eventually told the kids. Not everything, just the pieces they could understand. We said Mommy and Daddy discovered something surprising about our families and that we needed time to understand it. We told them it wasn't their fault. That we loved them. That we always would. Evan nodded slowly like an adult pretending to understand. Nora just asked if we were still coming to her school play. When we said yes, she smiled like it was all that mattered. Maybe for her, it was. Amber and I didn't divorce, not in the legal sense. But we redefined our life. We moved into 2 houses on the same block. I took Tuesdays and Thursdays. She took Wednesdays and Fridays. Weekends we split. Mondays were family days. We cooked together, helped with homework, watched movies on the couch, the 4 of us wrapped in one big blanket. Some people said it was weird. Others whispered behind our backs when they thought we couldn't hear. But the people who mattered? They showed up. A neighbor brought us coffee one morning and said, "Whatever you two are doing, your kids always look happy. That's what counts." We nodded, said thank you, and carried on. I still loved her. I probably always will. But we stopped calling it marriage. Stopped calling it anything that had a label. It was love, but not the kind the world knew how to name. Sometimes, late at night, we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch and talk about what might have been. How a twist of fate and 2 strangers who never knew they were connected built a family without knowing the truth. We wondered if we would have met anyway at a grocery store or a PTA meeting or passing each other in line at a gas station. Would we have felt something? Would it have mattered? The truth was, fate didn't just bring us together. It also broke us apart. But we made peace with that. The kind of peace you only find after everything's fallen apart and you're still standing. The letters we wrote for Evan and Nora stayed in the safe. One day, when they're older, when they can understand the depth and weight of what we carried, we'll give them those pages. Not out of guilt, but out of love. Pure, imperfect, honest love. I think that's the real legacy we'll leave. Not the bloodline or the scandal or the shock, but the fact that when faced with an impossible truth, we chose compassion over shame and love over fear. That we stayed, in whatever form we could. The world doesn't have a word for what we became. But our kids? They just call it family. And that's enough for me.